On 90 Day Fiancé, Angela has always been a formidable character who adds drama, intensity, and memorable moments to the screen. However, beneath her fearless exterior, some personal problems began to show in ways that were hard to ignore. Fans, who have always viewed Angela as a strong personality, are now quite surprised by her recent path toward counseling and rehab. However, a deeper examination shows how Angela's relationships and health have suffered, particularly as a result of her struggles with substance abuse. Angela has suffered from decades of heavy smoking and an unrelenting cycle of personal difficulties. Fans noticed her changing appearance and a noticeable tiredness that suggested something more than just on-screen stress, which made it obvious that her health was failing over time. It seemed as though the years of enduring pain suddenly caught up with her, resulting in this crucial moment of introspection. Fans watched Angela's relationship with Michael, who frequently found himself caught in the crossfire of her personality, go through ups and downs, and her road to rehab is paved with years of struggle that began long before she stepped foot on the 90 Day Fiancé page. Angela's storyline was defined by the pair's heated arguments and emotionally charged moments, but behind these on-camera conflicts, Angela was battling personal struggles that weren't always apparent to fans. Long-term alcohol consumption, heavy smoking, and what many believed to be constant stress had been subtly deteriorating her health. Before long, Angela's off-screen decisions started to have an unavoidable impact on her physical and emotional well-being. Her habitual drinking and chain smoking became more than just lifestyle choices, they were outward signs of a more serious struggle. Her family and close friends, who had been silently observing her gradual decline for years, were aware of the signs, including her weight fluctuations and the loss of her skin's natural glow. Her grandchildren also started to notice the changes. Her personality was gradually being replaced by someone who was having difficulty keeping up with her own life. Even though Angela always came across as strong, her family was afraid that she was a ticking time bomb that would eventually blow up. Her family began pressuring Angela to get help because her health had gotten so bad. Her reliance on drugs like alcohol became increasingly noticeable over time, manifesting not only in her behavior but also in her physical appearance. Angela dismissed the family's worries with her usual stubbornness, refusing to acknowledge the issue that everyone else could see so plainly. Although Angela herself didn't seem ready to admit it, her family was concerned that her long-standing habits were causing her body to deteriorate. Angela struggled to accept that her lifestyle was having such a negative impact on her health, even as it deteriorated. Her years of drinking and smoking weren't merely consequences of her public life, they were important coping strategies. As they watched her deteriorate, family members, particularly her children and grandchildren, started to feel powerless. The woman who had once thrived on drama and conflict was beginning to lose herself, as evidenced by her weak appearance, breathing difficulties, and lack of energy. With no other choice, her family could only watch helplessly as Angela's health and relationships with her loved ones deteriorated. In an attempt to reach Angela, her family staged multiple interventions after deciding to take matters into their own hands. Her family expressed their anguish and annoyance at witnessing her decline, making these interventions emotionally taxing. Angela's grandchildren were deeply impacted. They used to admire her as a vibrant, larger-than-life grandmother, but now they witnessed her in distress. As the family attempted to shield the younger members from Angela's deteriorating health, their naive viewpoint added an even more agonizing layer to their concerns. The family's attempts to intervene frequently resulted in heated arguments, with Angela losing her temper as she dismissed their worries. These difficult conversations hardly ever reached her, leaving her family feeling helpless. Angela's walls remained intact despite everyone's fervent requests until her family decided to take matters into their own hands with a final intervention. Angela saw her family members' worried expressions as soon as she entered. Her initial response was to defend herself, saying she was all right and didn't require assistance. Angela was prepared to brush off what she perceived as her family's overreaction, but as the discussions progressed, her barriers started to come down. Her eldest grandchild's appeal struck her most deeply as her family members, one by one, told her how her actions had impacted them without holding back. They wept as they talked about how they feared losing their grandmother if she didn't change. Angela couldn't ignore the realization that came when she heard this heartfelt confession from someone she loved and who had always admired her. Angela realized this was a wake-up call because for the first time she was unable to ignore the hurt her actions had caused. It was a moment of unquestionable truth to hear her family open up about their worries and anxieties. Angela's confidence began to wane, giving way to a quiet that revealed the internal conflict she had been harboring the entire time. Perhaps for the first time, she felt the weight of responsibility as she realized how her decisions affected the people she loved the most. Although the intervention wasn't a panacea, it marked the start of her realization that things couldn't go on as they were. Even though she had come to terms with it, Angela wasn't particularly excited about the prospect of going to treatment. She was hesitant at first, thinking it was needless and a sign of weakness. Admitting that she needed help wasn't easy for Angela, who had established a reputation for toughness and resilience, but it was impossible to ignore the reality she was now facing. The idea of disappointing her family started to overcome her initial reluctance as she could see the desperation on their faces. She realized that going to rehab might be her only chance to take back control of her life and mend the relationship she had nearly destroyed. She gradually realized that going to rehab was about regaining control and standing up for herself and her family, not about giving up. The road ahead wasn't any simpler, but wanting to leave was a significant step. Every day, rehab forced Angela to face unpleasant realities she had long suppressed and gave her unexpected challenges. She had to confront years' worth of unresolved emotions during therapy sessions, and initially, Angela resisted the intense questions and exercises that made her feel exposed. Like a defensive mechanism, her anger and resistance flared up again and again as she attempted to avoid the uncomfortable realities that therapy was exposing. As she settled in, breakthroughs started to occur, but the first few weeks were a mix of frustration and self-doubt, with Angela frequently wondering if this process was even worth it. Angela began to see her habits as coping mechanisms for unresolved issues rather than a simple love of cigarettes or alcohol. She had utilized these instruments to hide the suffering she had endured over the years. Therapy began to reveal feelings of insecurity, painful memories, and a fear of vulnerability that had motivated a lot of her actions even before she met her 90-day fiancé. She gradually started to realize that her issues with addiction and control were signs of an internal conflict she had not been prepared to confront. Although it wasn't an easy realization, Angela had to begin her healing process. In treatment, Angela at last acknowledged the effects of her behavior on Michael, her family, and herself. As she progressed through therapy, she realized the impact her actions had had over the years. The initial conflicts and the obstinate demeanor she had adopted as armor had alienated people, particularly those who had supported her through good times and bad. Angela wasn't one to take criticism easily, so this new clarity wasn't easy. However, as she sat with the memories and went over difficult times again, she began to see how her own behavior had contributed to the problems in her marriage to Michael. In addition to treating her addiction, her treatment encouraged her to accept responsibility for her part in the tense relationships in her life. The impact of her actions on her grandchildren was among Angela's most important insights. These were children who admired her and had been impacted by the very decisions she believed she could conceal from them. In her heart, she knew that moving forward would take more than just words. Asking for forgiveness became a crucial component of her journey, not as a band-aid solution, but as a sincere effort to restore the trust she had shattered. When Angela confided in her family about her regrets, it was evident that her words had more depth than before. Although she was aware that the process of change would not be simple, she was prepared to dedicate herself to it. Angela's journey led her to a place of unexpected vulnerability where she looked inward and lashed out, revealing a path she never would have imagined taking. Angela was able to start over and put her insights into practice at rehab. Her health started to improve as her sense of purpose returned. Eliminating her dependency on alcohol and cigarettes, although recovery didn't guarantee perfection and Angela knew she would have days when she slipped or felt demoralized, she also knew that she was getting stronger every day. Angela's small physical improvements served as a reminder of her capacity to rebuild. Comments like "seeing Angela turn her life around gives me hope, and she's proving that change is possible no matter how far down you've fallen" are coming in from her admirers. It was evident that viewers who had either experienced comparable difficulties or who merely admired her bravery in making a change found resonance in her story. However, what are your thoughts on the matter as a whole? Tell me what you think. Angela's decision to enter rehab is shown below.